Good morning, Kenya does continue. If you're just joining us, Karibu Tena Sana. We are continuing with the day's discussion. Remember, you can talk to us using the hashtag Good Morning Kenya on Twitter. Our official station handle ever remains at KBC Television, and our individual handles at Remanyara, at Dorina Range, at Ramaguko, and myself at Jane Mumboy. That is how you can find us across all social media platforms. Now, we want to get started with the next discussion, and this one is about a life-changing situation. He went in a very young man and came out a very different man, but we are going to hear from him his story and what it has entailed and what he has learned over the years when he was away. I will not tell you the context in the situation with this discussion. I'm going to leave that to our guest, but please be part of this discussion and interact with us via those communication platforms on Twitter that I've just issued, and we'll be absolutely glad to respond to whatever questions that you may be having this morning. So Karibu Sana.
Thank you.
He is Wilson Kenywa, who is a former inmate, a lawyer now, and the founder of Criminal Justice Dialogue. Karibu Sana to Good Morning Kenya.
Thank you, Jane.
And he was here in very good time. We appreciate that.
Thank you too.
All right, so you told me you're also on Twitter.
Yes.
Maybe you could give us your Twitter handle so that our viewers can also interact with you.
Voice of Justice, and the word justice has no E at the end.
Okay.
Voice of Justice 17. Voice of Justice 17, and there's no E at the end.
Voice of Justice, no E on the word justice, just C, then 17, Voice of Justice 17.
Yes.
All right, so if you have any questions law related, you can direct to him on a very personal basis, or you can use hashtag Good Morning Kenya on Twitter. Now, we've just touched on a bit of your story, but we'd like to go back to the genesis, so we can be able to understand how the journey has been over the years. Maybe you could take us back to, it was the year 1998?
Yes, it's a 21 years journey.
Yeah.
From 1998. I'd just completed my Form 4. At the age of 19, so I was a teenager of 19 years, and I was a country boy. So I came to Nairobi immediately, and I wanted to do CPA, and I joined CPA actually, but 3 months into my course, that's when I found myself in a crossfire between cops and gangsters who wanted to rob somewhere. And in that crossfire, 3 people were injured, and I was part of the 3 guys who were injured. All of us were handcuffed and branded suspect. We were all taken to Kenyatta Hospital for treatment so that we can later be taken to prison or arraigned in court. But the public in Western started protesting, saying these are not criminals. We know them. At least they knew 2 of the guys who were taxi drivers who operated from that area, and therefore because...
The other 2 who you were arrested with?
Yeah. They were actually known to the public. So the police had to give up that battle and released the 2 guys. But I remained the person now who was not known, and there was Israel, now branded suspect, and taken through the judicial process now.
And what were you doing that specific day around that environment?
That morning I was actually heading to Kasha bus at one of the pickup points where the Courage bus picks the students.
Yeah.
So just before I boarded the bus, that's the journey.
That is when it all happened.
Yeah, it all happened, yeah.
All right, so you were just 19 years old. You have been caught in a crossfire between cops and robbers, got injured in the process, were arrested among 2 others. The 2 others were released due to, public outrage, and then you now suffered the fall. Exactly. What followed after that? After you left the hospital, you were now arraigned in court and charged?
Yes, then the next thing I was taken to court, and I was charged for robbery with violence. And I was taken through the court system. To me, I call it due process in court, because I say due process in court because
it was in
actually those were the times when there was the worst injustice in the judiciary, because this is in public domain. Just before the Lingera Commission, you could walk in court. If you are guilty, you would buy justice and go home, even if you are guilty. If you are innocent, you will go to prison just because you don't have money, even if you are innocent.
So the narrative, rich and innocent, poor and guilty, was very much in play.
There was no guarantee that actually those people who are in prison are actually guilty.
Yeah.
So, and I'm not here to say I was innocent or guilty. That is now, I'm now talking about something bigger than that. But imagine a case where you are taking that process. First of all, you are not represented.
You didn't have representation
I
when you
was not represented. And those are the cases that experts, including judges, concede that in such case, such enormous case, if you are not represented, you are likely to suffer miscarriage of justice.
Isn't the state supposed to assign a lawyer for those who are not able to find someone that can represent them?
That was supposed to be the case. Unfortunately, it wasn't in our laws. And therefore, you are supposed to present yourself.
Okay.
And imagine this is a boy who has come from school. He has never been in the hands of police, let alone in court. You are supposed now to defend yourself. You don't know what it means to defend yourself. What are you supposed to say? What are your rights?
So you actually told to represent yourself in
Yes,
court and argue your case.
You have been charged with this, and in the event we found you guilty, you are supposed to be hanged. So defend yourself.
Wow.
You don't know what to say. I could not even express myself. Now I can talk, I can speak. That time I can't speak. The whole setup is, first of all, intimidating.
Yes.
To a Form 4 student.
And that was the very first time you actually coming to Nairobi when you came to study?
Yes. I didn't even have time to make friends in Nairobi. 3 months.
Wow.
I was just with my siblings in Nairobi.
All right.
Yes.
So now you were told to represent yourself, and that, of course, did not go in your favor.
Yes.
And you ended up being convicted.
Yeah.
You were put on death row at first.
Yeah, the moment you are convicted, it is death sentence. And I lost all the appeals because that is where the foundation of the case is laid. So if you lose there, there's little you are going to do to salvage your case.
And what were the charges specifically that you...
Robbery with
the counts?
violence.
Robbery with violence,
Yes.
which was the penalty was the death
penalty.
Death penalty.
Yeah.
All right, so you now go to prison the following year, 99?
Yeah, 99.
Yeah.
So after losing the appeals, I was taken to the death chambers. As actually looms that are next to the gallows. So that is where I spent for the next 10 years. I stayed there, waiting for the hangman. You don't know the time he's going to come, the hour and all that. You don't know.
So you're always on edge because you never know if today is that day.
Yeah, you can't imagine what is going in your mind and all that.
And I just read somewhere that your room was next to the hangman's office or something.
The next door. In fact, there was a vent that if you just tip the door slightly, you could see what is inside. Some hooks and white ropes down, like, you know, those are the one that akin to those that in the butchery.
The one that we usually see hanging
hooks,
the meat.
A setup that is likely even to instill more fear and more intimidation and trauma in you.
And you used to have that view or just peak for 10 years?
For 10 years.
10 years.
Yes.
Up until around 2009,
Yep.
when some change happened. Tell us a bit about that.
2009, the former president commuted death sentence for 4,000 inmates to life sentence. And that's when I now was removed there. And I was taken to the section where inmates now are allowed to do some to engage in technical trainings and go to school. There are staffs that are, you know, rehabilitation programs.
Yes.
You are allowed now to engage in those ones. Again, I stayed there for another 10 years.
And at what point did you feel you would like to now go back and have a look at your case? What happened to try to bring
when
that
I
change?
now joined the other inmates and I was allowed to engage in rehabilitation programs,
Yes.
I went to school. And like I told you, I had passion for CPA. So I joined the school and I called my brother and I told him I would want to proceed with the CPA, even if I'm in prison. Perhaps in future I might get a widow and get out. So he accepted and he paid for me to continue studying CPA at KASNEP.
Yeah.
And when I was like CPA Section 4, I met this organization called African Prison Project under directorship of one judicial officer from UK called Alexander McCrane. And he found me trying to help inmates in some court records and all that because my Form 4 education was quite a big education in prison because it's a population, it's a community that is overwhelmed by people who are poor and ignorant.
So the lot that you were with, most of them weren't as
so
educated.
that education would be able to help some people, people to do some stuff to do with the court.
Yeah.
And so when he saw this, he was encouraged and told me whether he can sponsor me to do law, and I said yes. So he told me, I want to try you with a diploma, and he paid me for diploma at the University of London. And I did diploma between 2014, 2015, I completed, and he told me now you can proceed to degree program.
You completed and you passed?
Yes, so the organization actually employed lecturers, full-time lecturers, and it now engaged other students. So those inmates who can manage the CATRA in C+ and above to go and do university course. So those inmates have been taken on board, and therefore the organization has facilitated lecturers in that program. So I went through that program and I completed my degree in Bachelor's of Law degree this year.
LLB.
So I'll be having graduation ceremony sometimes this year, like October.
Yeah.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
That is such a story of encouragement.
Yes. Now with my legal education, just about when I was at diploma level, I was able to identify so many gaps in our criminal justice system. And I was able now to appraise the system through which I was taken through and identify the unfairness in that system. The
loopholes that were there.
Yeah, and that is when we mooted a case and decided to take it back to court in form of constitutional petition to challenge mandatory death penalty. Because it did not matter what you have done, the content of your crime, whether you killed, whether you did not kill, whether you harmed anyone, whether what you stole is anything of monetary value in that capacity, because there are people who've been taken there for snatching mobile phones,
and put on death row.
Yes, packets of chips, the packaged food that you buy in the on a food kiosk, and you are walking home and somebody snatches, and if you want to get it back, he pushes you. That is violence. In the definition of robbery with violence, that's how it is. You don't have to be armed. You don't have actually to use violence. You can only use threat. And if you have to use violence, it doesn't have to be, you don't have to be armed. You can any form of violence. That is the construction of robbery with violence. So the moment you are found guilty under any offense that falls within that bracket, death sentence is a straitjacket.
It's an automatic.
Automatic. So you get death penalty. So that is the unfairness. And in fact, when I went to prison, I was 19 years. But even smaller boys came after me, 16, 17 years of age, were in prison because of that. And what is even challenging is you look at the content of what they have done, and you are wondering, is death penalty, execution of those boys, the only solution that we can have as a country?
And you were at committee maximum.
Committee maximum prison. Now, that is when now we took that that matter to court. And the first instance, that was a case that the court would not have entertained. That is actually what we were told by the first High Court, judge of the High Court, that he cannot entertain that matter because our matter has already been closed by the Court of Appeal, which was then the highest court in the land. And there's no way they can open such a matter. And so the matter was dismissed summarily without even being heard.
In which year was that?
That was in 2010.
2010, okay.
That is when we took we took the matter to court. When it was dismissed, then we appealed to the Court of Appeal, and we went to the Court of Appeal and challenged his decision, which was overturned. And therefore, we won the first round, and we were submitted back to the High Court with an order that now we have substantive hearing before a 3-judge bench. So the former Chief Justice constituted a 3-judge bench to hear that matter. And we had that matter, and in 2016, the ruling was out that mandatory death penalty was unconstitutional. So we won that case. And over and above that declaration, there were other laws that were impugned. The robbery with violence law was impugned. The attempted robbery law was impugned. So there was a revolution in the major laws of the criminal justice system. you know, because those are the jugular, you know, you can say the major veins that take people to prison. Robbery, attempted robbery, and murder. And those were supposed to be now redrafted afresh. Yes.
Now, you have been able to at least make some progress, but you are still in prison on a life sentence. At what point did you now review your case so that, you know, you can also be heard and get that window to actually have freedom in sight?
Yes, the moment it was, the declaration was made that mandatory death sentence is unconstitutional, then it means my sentence was unlawful. So I had to be taken back to court for resentencing. And in fact, 2017, after the ruling was made in 2016, 2017, the Supreme Court in the case of Francis Muruateto gave a stamp of authority to that decision, saying that the decision that was made in the High Court by the 3 judges bench was right. So it was approved. And that what it meant is that all the 8,000 inmates who are affected by that decision has to go back to court to get resentencing.
All that were on death row.
So that decision actually brought reprieve to another 8,000 inmates. As we speak, majority of them have been released. Others are still lined up going back to court to get their sentence you know, done afresh, so that they can now be able to commensurate the criminal responsibility and the sentence, the punishment. So that is what happened to myself.
Okay.
So the judges said, we are satisfied with the achievement you've done in prison, the term you've already served, now you can go home.
And you represented yourself this time around,
I
at least with
represented
knowledge.
myself and 12 others in that case called Joseph Kaberi and 12 others.
Yeah.
And on behalf of all the inmates in the Republic of Kenya, because that decision, that question represented the unfairness to all those 8,000 inmates.
All right. Now, you were just released earlier on in this year on the 13th of February.
Yes.
And it's been about 3 months. Now, looking back at the 21 years that you served in prison for a crime that you did not commit, and I'm sure in prison you were also able to interact with some others who went through the same journey. Let's just try and have a look at some of the loopholes that, you know, you have been able to identify and what more needs to be done when it comes to the criminal and the justice system in Kenya.
Actually, that is the point.
Yeah.
And Jane, I'm not here to tell people I did not do what took me to prison. The reason I'm saying that, people are taken through the due process. But think about this. You were taken through the judicial system at about the time when you could walk into court with money and buy justice. That is 1998, just before the Ringera Commission. You walk to court and you go to prison because you don't have money and you cannot afford justice. And I went there because my background was not interesting. My people would not have afforded money to hire me a lawyer and would not have afforded me money even to buy that justice. So my computer, you know, computer teachers tell us garbage in, garbage out. So even if I was, the criminal process have adjudged me guilty. Well, now think about that process somebody has been taken through. Would you still believe that we have the capacity to take people in prison, only those who are guilty? Really not. There are people who are going to prison innocent because of the loopholes in the criminal justice system. Those are the things. At least today there is significant change in the judiciary. There is order, there is jurisprudence in the court, yeah. There's significant transformation, and you can be able to see some, you know, some confidence in the judiciary today. That was, those were not the time. But still, we are not home and dry. There are issues we are still agitating, and we would want reform in the institution so that we can only ensure that only the guilty person are subjected to such kind of pain and public shame, and not an innocent person. And that is all to do with the criminal justice dialogue that I've initiated since I came out of prison. There are other people inside prison who are innocent. So we have to ensure that we get it right in our criminal laws, we get it right in terms of our institutions, in the line of criminal justice system, so that only the guilty person, we enhance the security that is embodied in the due process. That is our objective.
Yes. Now let's just, looking at the whole justice process, it starts with representation. You were a victim of, you know, not being able to find somebody who could represent you. And, according to the laws of the state, if you cannot afford one should be accorded to you, at least as of now. From your interaction with, at least since you in your time out, have you been able to actually see that is actually happening? For those who cannot afford lawyers, they're able to be accorded one by the state.
Today, we have a very progressive constitution that allows that now we can be able to afford lawyers at the state expense. We should be given, or those who are charged should be given state representation by the state. But that law has not completely been actualized. There are people still who are representing themselves in the law court. Actually, majority of them, they are not getting lawyer at the law court. Still that law, even after that law is in place, there are people who are going through that process without representation in the law, especially with robbery with violence and other offenses. Only murder is guaranteed at the high court level. So that law must be actualized.
At all levels.
So we can't say everything. Yes, we have the law, but let us now walk the talk.
The implementation is
let us not reduce the law into mere paper. If it has said so, let us afford those who are in court the lawyers, because that is the law, that is the requirement of the law and the Constitution specifically.
All right.
Yes.
Now, you were in a prison for 21 years, and it is a place you have spent more than you were out. You spent more years in prison as opposed to the time that you were out. Now, looking at those years in prison, would you say that, in as much as you were serving for a crime, you were able to grow and still build yourself, looking at the laws in prison, the facilities in prison, and even the accommodation there?
Yes, once again,
are they as reformative as they're supposed to be?
The moment I went to prison, it was bad in prison.
Yeah.
It was the times that there were all those issues about violation of rights of inmates. It was very bad. It was a prison within prison, actually. I can say that just to tell you the gravity of how it was. But today there is that, there is that transformation that we can be able to afford to see transformation actually. Today our constitution demands for a correction facility otherwise than a prison, so that we ensure the people we are taking to prison, the objective is to have their lives transformed to be, people that we can rely on in the public and can be productive in the society. So we don't want to keep them there forever, to break their lives, that they can have an opportunity to come out and be productive. Now, so today there's all those rehabilitation programs.
Yes.
Including the legal education. Today, at least, they are manufacturing professionals like myself and others. So we were confined to a straitjacket of being a carpenter, being a tailor and all that, which is now not the case. So we can say there is all that. But as I said, we are not yet home.
Yes.
There is a phenomenal initiative by the Prison of Open Door Policy that they can partner with other agencies to be able, to up the game in terms of rehabilitating the prisoners. But as we are saying, if it is in the law that we are not now having the prisons but correctional facilities, let even the government be part of it, and let us not leave it to the agencies themselves. The government must have a vote, in terms of finance, to be able to facilitate this transformation. And that is how we can be able to bring down the trajectory of violence and insecurity in this country through ideologies, not using arms and ammunition. We don't have to lose the lives of young people through using arms and ammunition. We can take them through rehabilitation properly. And considering, there's crimes, the content of crimes, the new generation of crimes, snatching and all that, the mugging that we have upgraded into robbery with violence, because we have never revisited laws that were created in the colonial system.
And that just brings me actually to now the other side of the divide. When you're not in prison, now the law itself and the institutions that are supposed to, ensure that the laws are actually up to date and well in line with keeping up with the times. What more do you feel needs to be done to try and just, just as you're saying, when it comes to robbery with violence, are there like level 1, level 2, just try and sort of categorize the different crimes and accord the different sentences rightfully, as opposed to having a blanket sentence for every crime that is in any way associated to that?
Yes, Jane, there are a lot of issues.
Yeah.
And without being exhaustive, because I can't exhaust all of them, but I can give you some of them. When we are talking about laws, there are several laws that we need to reform, because the criminal justice system is one area that has been neglected you know, because it doesn't affect people with monies, the poor people and all that. And I've drawn a memorandum that I've actually served to the institution that matters. And I'll be going to meet them and, you know, talk to them, because papers don't talk. Some of those papers I supplied to them because I was actually prisoner spokesperson when I was in prison for a long time. Yeah, on matters touching on the access to justice, human rights, rehabilitation, and all those issues. And we did some memorandums and served to those institutions. Judicially, to the Law Society, we have served to Kenya Human Rights Commission, we have served to the Law Reform Commission.
Have any of them responded?
Well, I've met some of them, but I still need to meet most of them so that now they can engage me one-on-one, because some papers do not respond to questions, and certain issues cannot be explicated from the paper.
Okay.
But now that I'm here and I can be able to meet them, we can be able to engage. Now, the point is, there are laws have done there that must be reformed, or should be reformed. And actually, in exciting this dialogue, because I cannot claim that I have the monopoly of idea. You know what I'm saying? Let us dialogue, let us engage, because I'm coming from experience. You know, laws that I feel they are clearly unfair and would not give you the result we want. All of us want to apprehend violence. All of us want to apprehend insecurity, but there are better methods. Let us ensure, first of all, only the guilty people go to prison. We must change laws. For example, the issue of miscarriage of justice. Those people who have gone to prison and have exhausted all the legal process, but still they are innocent, that we can be able to get more evidence to show that they are actually innocent.
To support
Do you know
case?
They have no proper way of going back to court? Majority of lawyers will rush to tell me about Article 50. That Article 50 sub Article 6, that when you have new and comparing evidence, you can go to court. But that is not, is it? It's not just that, because you have to get new and comparing evidence. How do you get that evidence when you are in custody? You know, if you go to UK, they have that system called Criminal Justice Review Commission, where there is a body that subjects that matter to further scrutiny. Then they themselves come up with that new and comparing evidence and recommend way forward. That is not what it is in Kenya. So I've given you one law, but there are several rules. Number two is about the institutions. When matters delay in court, what process do we take as litigants? You know, sending our people, go and push my case there and do that. That pushing takes the form of encouraging corruption in court. You know, those are the issues we need to engage the judiciary, and they need to reason to us, because we have come from the experience level. And I'm happy I met Chief Justice just before I left prison, and he encouraged me to go to his office. I haven't gone there because of, you know, there's some bureaucracy and all, but I expect I'll get away and meet him. But he told me I can go there and take those issues, because they are not issues we need to address in court. And we can suggest effective methods to the judiciary to address those issues. The same way to the DPP office. That is a public office. It is not a public, it is not an office that is supposed to win every case at every cost. They are supposed to be managers of justice and help the court to deliver justice. That is why even the accused and the accusers must depend on that office of the prosecution. You know? Those issues, like I have a case already I'm handling, somebody who is not in prison actually. You know, somebody who is being deprived arbitrarily by other people, but when he goes to claim in court, he is arrested and taken to prison. Turangata, because, you know, people just formulate criminal laws out of those civil matters and take him to prison. You know, people defining systems of abusing our judiciary, abusing our police, and abusing the system to be able to deprive people property. You know, criminalizing issues that should not be. To be able to deprive it. So those are issues we are saying, let us leave, seal those loopholes. You know, if it is the DPP office, provide protection to such people. You know, when we go to Law Society of Kenya, and I said it again, that we have lawyers who, instead of protecting people, they are manufacturing victims of injustice. Because when you take my money to represent me and you abscond responsibility, you make me go through trial without representation, I suffer miscarriage of justice because of you, who is supposed to protect us. And when you take complaint to Law Society of Kenya. They take too long to respond. If you take that matter to court, no lawyer want to stand a case against another lawyer. So that's why we are offering criminal justice dialogue. If you have such cases, talk to us. We will make it that we become the go-between and ensure we expedite response from those institutions so that we can have people not suffering.
And justice is served
and
for all.
justice is served. That is what we want.
Now, another part of this conversation is not the public as a whole, because you find when an inmate comes from prison, the public perception is not very accommodating, such that, yes, they came out of prison, they did carpentry, they did metal work, they did some form of course in prison. When you came out, you were given the equipment to start, but you don't have the finances to keep going. You find that you have to resort in one way or the other to your old ways, and you end up going back to prison. What role can the community and the public as a whole play to just try and kill that cycle that keeps repeating itself for the inmates who have been in prison, trying to make it in life out here, but still not being accommodated and supported?
Again, that is part of the dialogue that we are engaging the prison and engaging the Ministry of Security, the internal security, so that we don't just get it right in the judiciary and we get it right with the police and all that. When somebody is actually adjudged and proven guilty and taken to prison, what do we want out of that person? We want tangible transformation of that offender. We want, the moment that person is released to the public have nothing to worry that that person may go back to the criminal responsibility, to the criminal activities that he was doing. Then we must get it light in the prison so that not all inmates can become lawyers. Do we have other standard transformation, rehabilitation program in prison? And up to what level? Up to what level? We need to facilitate those who are coming out of prison. We have wonderful skills in prison. Wonderful skills. The skills that you envy, the kind of skills that have actually made the chairs in parliament. You can be able to see that kind of fine skills. But where does that skill go after prison? Do we find those skills outside for those who have been released? We need to ensure after they come out of prison, they have a way of starting life. We can be able to see those skills actually happening in outside prison. How do we do that?
So
we must now go beyond open door policy. The government must come in. And I'm saying we are suggesting effective methods of how we can ensure that skills is secured, that skill is protected, and those people do not go back to prison. And so that we can kill the recycle that you are talking about. Because the moment a guy comes out of prison and is not reformed, he recruits new people. And when he goes back to prison, he goes with the people who've never been to prison. And that is why the crime will never go down. But if we kill that one, you kill recruitment and you kill recidivism in prison.
So the back really falls on both the prison system and the public as a whole. The system needs to be as effective.
Everybody has a responsibility throughout that journey of criminal justice system, including the prison. And we can be able to do that. We are also partnering, in fact, right now we are partnering with the MP for Naivasha, Jane Kehara. We want to do something about it just around Naivasha prison and ensure that those people who come out of prison, we can be able to see what they do outside prison.
And support them.
I hope this is going to be, emulated by other counties, other areas, so that we ensure we can be able to tame that. And that is how we are going to arrest crime and insecurity in this country.
Now, another entity that gets to really suffer is the family of the person who goes to prison. Maybe how was your family directly impacted when you were sentenced at just 19 and served a 21-year sentence?
Yes. Actually,
and what role can even the family play in terms of helping, especially the youth? Because these days, just as you're saying, you met other young people in prison, some 16 who are supposed to be in juvie, but they're in maximum security prison.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just before I come to the issue of the family, another law that I'm talking about, especially those young people who are going to main prison, as young as 16 and 17 and all that, those are minors, and they should not be in main prison. But our law is such that when you are tried in the ordinary court, perhaps a minor has been accused together with a person of a majority age, a minor has committed a capital offense, such offenses, the default is that they are taken to the main prison. But the Children's Act has not dispensed them with the protections in the Children's Act. They still enjoy that. But nobody is able to avail them those rights so that they are not accommodated or they are not kept in the main prison. They are taken to the Children's Court. So those are among the areas we want addressed.
Yes.
But coming back to the family, you know, personally, I lost my mom because she contracted depression-related diseases. In 2014, that's when I lost her. But she started suffering immediately I was arrested. So there is a lot of effect into the family. Those people, some of the people who go to prison are actually the breadwinners. If they are breadwinners, what becomes of the people who used to depend on him? If our children, and nobody is taking care of those children, they are likely to follow him in prison through crimes and all that. How do we address those gaps so that we ensure even those people who are left outside, because they are not the one. If that person was actually guilty, it is not his family that is guilty. So we must protect that family. And actually the Constitution has given the state that mandate to protect the family. It is not the family of those people who are not, it is the family. The institution of the family is protected under the Constitution. So we must ensure, even those people who go to prison, we are not enjoying their free labor in prison. Actually, they generate a lot of income in prison. And when we say inmates should be paid in prison, we don't say they should be paid from the public money. They should be paid from what they generate in prison. Part of it should go to them, and so that they can be able even to take care of their families when they are there. They can even be able to take care of themselves when they are there, because there are basic needs that we require there. And they can be able again to take care of their family when they are there. They generate a lot of income when they are there. So let us not enjoy because we have gotten inmates there and we can make parliament shares.
Take advantage of the situation,
We are not inculcating in them, you know, the habit of actually be able to know that you can be able to earn honest living on your own sweat, from your own sweat. The way we can be able to do that is to make sure that they can earn from what they are generating inside prison. So it is not from public money.
It goes back to the reform system.
It goes back to the reform.
Now, as we bring the conversation to a close, maybe what would you like to say to the greater public and even those in relevant offices that could be watching this interview in regards to the justice system as it is, the laws as it is, and the inmates who are just came out and trying to find a way about recovering some sense of direction in life?
Yes, what we are offering through this initiative, Criminal Justice Dialogue, is that table of dialogue. Let us partnership, let us collaborate, because we have exclusive information.
Yes. First-hand.
Accept to listen to us. When we have those issues, we want to suggest effective methods. So I want to do the same with the judiciary. I know their reasoning. I want to suggest the same to the office of the DPP, to the Law Society, and even to the prison and the Ministry of Internal Security. We are offering that window. When we receive those complaints, accept to collaborate with us, because we are not instituting something that is going to antagonize your work, but to make your work effective, because all of us want the result, and we want a good result for this country. So that is what we want, and I want to make this as a, you know, as an invitation, you know, allow me
briefly.
Allow me to meet you, the Cabinet Secretary for Internal Security, to meet you, the Chief Justice. I have those that exclusive information. Let me suggest them to you and see how we can address those perennial problems that we have been unable to eradicate. We have been unable to obliterate completely.
And we have solutions inside.
And we have solutions. And we will be able to apprehend crime and insecurity in this country without using a lot of force. And by the way, we will save money. Having a lot of people in prison that are not supposed to be there, we will save money. Having to use a lot of ammunition and guns on people when we have a method of apprehending this without using guns and ammunition, we will save money for better use.
All right.
Yeah.
We're going to make some more time to have you come back and see, you know, if we have made progress towards that end and what more needs to be done. We have been speaking with Wilson Kinyo. He was a former inmate. He is now a lawyer who will be graduating very soon. Congratulations once again.
Thank you so much.
And also the founder of a Criminal Justice Dialogue. He went to prison at the age of 19, served a 21-year sentence, came out and decided to, you know, speak for those who have not been able to get that opportunity to have the justice that they so deserve. So let's keep this conversation going. If you feel we can be able to help him through this journey, why don't you interact with him? His Twitter handle is at Voice of Justice, and that is justice without an E at the end, just Voice of Justice 17, Voice of Justice 17, and you can be able to help push this conversation forward and try and have a better criminal system here in our country. While the conversations do continue here on Good Morning Kenya, we want to take a quick commercial break, but we'll be right back. Keep talking to us using the hashtag Good Morning Kenya. My handle is the Jane Wambui, and our official station handle at KBC Television. See you after the break.